everyone. Hello, 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 hello. Let me bring that music down a bit. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Fnatic's Brush. Sorry. I'm still and will always be your host, Matt Scott. Thank you for joining me for this ultimate episode of the Spring Split as we're heading this weekend into the final games, semifinals and finals happening on Saturday and Sunday, which will determine the split winner, but also the two teams who will be heading into MSI. We're left with three final teams: Fnatic, BDS, and G2, fighting for the last two spots. Last spot, G2 already has their spot. It's more between Fnatic and BDS. So, we'll look into that as we see all the action that's happened in the LEC the past week, the teams that have lost, what's happened, and some of the old metas that have returned, the lane swap, and all the discussions that's been happening around them. We'll talk about Fnatic's best of three and best of fives, how they participated in the bloodiest series in the history of the LEC, and some of the improvements or change in style that we've seen from the boys. Special episode of The Focus as we'll look into Jin and his gameplay and our predictions for the final two best of fives. Awesome. LEC games that happened on the past days. So we started with the last best of three, which were Team Vitality versus Mad Lions, Fnatic versus Team Heretics, followed by G2 and BDS on Sunday, and Monday to close it with Fnatic versus Vitality. Obviously, Fnatic Team Heretics game was the opener here. Without obviously talking too much about it because we have our segment on Fnatic later on. Definitely a scary first game for Fnatic with a much more controlled second and third game. Still a bit messy, obviously, but already showcasing some better elements going into the second and third game compared to what we've seen the previous week. Vitality Mad Lions for me was definitely gonna be a 2-1. I thought that Mad Lions was gonna be much more competitive and we're gonna come in with some better strats, a sort of reinvigorated team following the prompt exit that they took from G2 the week prior. And while it was definitely a brawly game because that's the style that Vitality plays, obviously you can't escape that. It felt that Vitality always had the upper hand, even though when it was rather close. I believe was the Ari top gameplay, which again feels like Merwin has to pick the sort of cheesy out of the box champions to give his team a chance, but really didn't work this time. People thought that it was going to be an on-hit version of the Ari that was going to be showcased, but it was just the classic AP Ari to just give a little bit of a switcheroo for Vitality in their drafting phase to say, we're going for Ari, which you would usually find in the mid lane, only to swap it back at the final minute. But I was pleasantly surprised by Vitality and especially Haley Sang, who, in my opinion, really put a shift in for Vitality. He came out obviously for was it the first game or the second game? I can't remember anymore. I'd have to check again. Give me 2 seconds here. Can I find the game again? Where was it? There we go. Right here. Match list. Bish bash bosh. I believe it was the first game. Sorry, no, it was the second game. Second game where he plays a bit of a crazy Tam Kench, as he has more of a how do I call it, main tank presence here, as Karzi is playing the vegan Senna, and Hilisangs gets all the CS, so he gets to build proper tank items. And already when you know that Hilisangs is the type of guy to play heavily on the front line, you're going to give him a heavy tank that's really going to be hard to kill. He's just going to, push it even harder. And I think, amongst other things, which were mainly, Vitality playing rather well together, especially in that second game. They shut down Mad Lions pretty hard, where they snowballed the first kills, which obviously is I would say a reflection of their style, which is you go hard, you accelerate fast, because you just keep snowballing, keep that aggression and choking more and more. Mad Lions, you look at their second game. Mad Lions only manages to get 2 turrets out of the 32-minute game, and Elyoya definitely had a complicated game on his J4. Frescawi, even with the sort of tanky Azir with Grasp, couldn't make anything happen. VTO played a really solid Orianna here, and Photon, who's, in my opinion, I think plays probably the best Twisted Fate top lane. He went into a matchup which, I don't know, in my opinion, I feel like Ari would probably beat Twisted Fate, because Ari is much faster, can have that gap close, but how fast can you be to pull that gold card, to stun, trade some auto attacks, and create some distance? I don't know the matchup well enough. I would just think from the top of my mind that an Ari would have definitely much more space for aggression into Twisted Fate, which is more of an immobile type of champion who needs that range and to have that gold card pop up. So you need that sort of lucky rotation where you get the gold card as soon as possible to get the stun and prevent the sort of dive all-in aggression from the RA. But it was definitely a surprising game, in my opinion, from Vitality. Game 1, very solid. Silas from VTO here, who caused some troubles for Mad Lions, who had some amazing ultis for him to steal between the Nocturne ult, the Alistar ult, and even Ari and Azir, but also Karthi just pulling off the Korean Ezreal. This guy is just really good, and it's crazy that he still gets slept on by some people. I'll never really understand it, but I guess that's how the narrative is. But if you look at that first game again and how he's hitting these Qs constantly, you can only be sort of in awe about his mechanics and his precision in game, really. But yeah, Vitality, first best of 3, get the 2-0 and move on to the other best of 5 before going into the final segment. G2 BDS. G2 decide to take a a note from the NIP book and has some lane swap, which, you know, there's been a lot of discussions around the lane swap about who did it first, where did it originate from, um, and for the people who have been around, you'll actually know that already back in 2015, we were seeing some lane swaps, and especially in the EU, Fnatic was the one to sort of usher in. Well, I don't know if necessarily usher in, but they were the one who would execute it the best out of anyone. Of sacrificing one side, especially this was the time where you had much more leash from the jungle because there were more camps, even for the red side. So the red side for the what am I saying, for the buffs. So you would have you know more presence from your laners at the start of the game, and it definitely felt a bit desperate for BDS. Adam was completely tilted out of his mind on that Aatrox game. They had a good read, which has been explained by different people, in the scene to say that there was no leak. Is that from the draft, and even Broken Blade himself said that they were able to read the picks and the how do I say the the strategy, the intent, even I should say, from um, from G2 to jump into that lane. So you're talking about teams, about players who spend their time looking at LCK, LPL, so they know what's going on. They know what type of picks to look into, and you're talking about G2 who has more time to prepare for one specific opponent every time because they're winning in that winners bracket area. So obviously they'll be more inclined to adapt strategies that are working really well and that will sort of take people rather short. But G2, you know, while the score looks quite dominant, did have to play very close games, and I feel it's a bit of Caps just being absolutely insane currently, and also BDS not being able to conclude some games, like especially the game one with the lead that they had. Uh, it feels like they fumbled it, and it's also, I think, a testament also to G2 that you cannot sleep on them. You have to bring your A game constantly. You have to be careful about every single element that's going on, and the moment you slip up, they're one of the better teams to actually take advantage of that single mistake and reverse the game onto you. And if you look at what would have happened, you would have potentially look at BDS having a 2-0 lead into the series and G2 having to reverse sweep. Now, we all know that G2 isn't really unfamiliar with reverse sweeping teams, especially when it comes to upper bracket shenanigans. But I think in terms of mental management, it would have been much easier for BDS to sort of go forward into the series rather than saying, oh, we should have won the first game and then we win the second game. Oh, I imagine it would have been a 2-0. I don't know really how they manage those instances within BDS, but definitely would have helped them a lot. So still think that they're quite a threatening team. Fnatic will have to be careful going into that best of 5 as you're looking at a BDS who's very much looking into strategies to counter lane swaps as well, so they'll be very prepared going into that next stage of the split. Get this man on the yes, absolutely, Lydon. I'm waiting for their call. The medic, various shocks, anyone. Yeah, you have my contact details. You know where how to reach me. I can be in Berlin tomorrow morning, first flight, no problem at all. Only a couple of hours for me, so that's no no bother at all. Um, Obviously, since we've had double Fnatic games, we get to talk straight away about Fnatic's double series. Medi Madi. Oh god, that wouldn't be confusing at all. This the eat your heart out, Vedi. I'm coming to replace you. I feel it would kind of break the dynamic because the thing with Medi and Vedius is that they're very different in build and size, whereas I mean, Medic is still taller than me. Like I had the chance to see him, take a picture with him, back in, was it MSI? But obviously in terms of size, I'm definitely closer to Medic than Vedi is. So there wouldn't be that sort of Laurel and Hardy kind of physical dynamic. Glad to see replace Medic, that guy. Oh, I'm not repeating. I'm not. Listen, I'm trying to get hired. I'm not trying to get cancelled straight away. I don't know, man. He's very nice with the fans. That's all I'll say. He's been very nice with me. He's accepted to take pictures. I appreciate him. But anywho's, moving on to Fnatic's games, looking into the best of 3 with Team Heretics. Definitely look quite concerning going into the first game. I'm not gonna lie, the draft looked unplayable. You had a lot of dive / go in hard engaged champions, and you're picking friggin' Jinx on the other side and barely no front line. You know, if I remember correctly, like, it was absolutely egregious what they were picking to face Jarvan, and I believe it was Ari that was the second pick, right? And you had the Rek'Sai, and you pick Udyr, and you pick Sejuani. Like, they're not gonna stop anything. Like, you're gonna ult one of them with your Sejuani ult, then friggin' Rek'Sai and Ari have a boulevard to just go back in the backline. That's exactly what happened. It felt like they forgot that they were playing with a Jinx, and that Jinx doesn't have the friggin' what's what was the name of that item that they removed where that had an active where it's a bit like a proto belt where you could dash and it's like win something. I can't remember. That item is gone, so unless she has flash, she can't really reposition. And it just, I mean, just from draft, I just wasn't really a fan. It felt like we drafted more to counter what was in front of us, rather to create really a synergy with the picks and say, oh, we have to take care of our of our Jinx. They have heavy dive. Maybe we can put a Tam Kench. Oh, Tam Kench was open there. Tam Kench sitting his arse next to Jinx. Works really well as well. Can chain the CC with the chompers, the slow. They dive onto Noah. June would gobble him up. Just to prevent the aggression. Reposition Razork and Oscar to sort of screen in front, and then release Noah with a Giga Shield from the ulti. But no, instead we draft another sort of go into their better going comp with the Nautilus and the Sejuani, and we get folded in 27 minutes. Zoru played a very good Ari. It is his sort of pocket pick, but you're really giving some strong picks with the Rek'Sai, the Zeri, the Ari. It just feels sometimes that Fnatic likes to play on hard mode. The LEC would be much better with less doctors and more Scots. I mean, they got an Irishman, which is not too far, but they're not in there yet. The real question is, when are you getting into the LEC, Dutch? That's, we see you doing all those events, but when are you hitting the big stage? The LEC needs the source, needs the Dutch source. Then he'd be a perfect fit. Then he would be a perfect fit. He'd know exactly who to replace. It's made for him. But yeah, so after this horrible game one, Fnatic finally wakes up, and literally wakes up. Is that before you'd watch Legends in action and realize what's been said, is that it really felt like they're like, oh wait, we're Fnatic, we're actually able to play correctly, like we have that caliber of players. And that's exactly what happened. They said, hey, we're better than them in scrims, we can actually beat them, calm the fuck down, breathe, stop stressing out for this best of three, and just play the game. Now, game 2 was still a bit of a mess, but they remembered that June has probably the best Alistar in the history of this champion. Like, holy shit, this guy is pixel perfect in his execution. And I think locking in Alistar for June is one of the biggest win conditions, disregarding everything that happens around in the game and any other picks. Like, this guy carries on the ball, dude. It's absolutely insane. It does help that Team Heretics decided, you know what? You took the Jinx into our Jarvan. We will repay the favor towards you and give you the Jarvan, and we will pick the Jinx. You're very much welcome. So, I don't know. A bit of a blunder here. Oscar gets on his Cassandra, and it's like other blunder from Team Heretics. Very good Taliyah pick into the Azir, and a much more manageable comp this time for Fnatic. Who's like, you know what? We're actually going to pick strong picks. We're going to put comfort as well. And we're going to give us some late game outcomes as well. And Jhin Alistar. I don't know, this guy's absolutely insane on this. Like the dive that they do where he punts away Trimby who tries to engage, and the heals just to resist the final turret shot. What a masterclass. Absolute masterclass in this game. Final game, this time Trimby decides that, he has to pay a favor to Fnatic again for picking him up in the last split of 2023. And he goes, you know what, guys, this is for you. And he locks in Alistar. We all know what his Alistar is worth. We know that it cost us a game. Well, not really, but kind of still, I don't want to sound too mean, but that's a bit the case. And, yeah, he just kind of decides to give us the game. We finally pick Aurelion Sol, who's been a bullshit champion for the longest of time. Oscar picks Zac, and is finally actually enjoying his time on a champion and plays the matchup really, really well. And he gets to just jump into the enemy. Final team fight, Trimby, again, pays us a favor, punts Oscar in onto Flakkid, who just ults into all of them. They're all wiped out. To be honest, very good early game from Razork on his Xin Zhao, who really needs that early advantage to be a champion, to be an existing piece on the board and not just be an other minion with a lance in his hand. So he definitely did some work in the early game to allow Noah and Huma to scale and just be uncontrollable, really. I think the reassuring fact is that we know Humanoid can play Aurelion Sol, because if Fnatic are to go against G2 again, that's going to be a heavily contested pick. Caps fucking pulled a pentakill the other day on Aurelion Sol. they can't allow themselves to give that champion away, 100%. Did you think that after that first series we'd win a best of 5 2 days later? Um, I definitely thought it would be a closer against Vitality. I had already voted for a 3-2 in my predictions, for the sole reason that, while there's still improvement, there's always the propensity of throwing a game because the coin flippiness of Razork has decided to peek its head again into his gameplay for some reason. I don't know why, because he was the one talking about discipline the most, and he's sort of returning to his default playstyle, which it's a bit like the meme. Is like sometimes it may be good and sometimes it may be shit, and that's exactly what happened. And after the Jax that he showed, was it against G2 that he played the Jax, and I was very, very afraid that that's pretty much a champion you can remove from his pool, because it felt like he didn't manage to know how even the combo works or is executed. I was like, that's a bit of an issue. But it feels like the trend is you lose the first game with a completely abysmal draft. Friggin' Humanoid says, hey, you know what? Trust me, lock me, Diana. I played her a couple of games, and I was like, that sounds like some of my solo queue teammates. They're like, you know what? I saw this guy play Yumi mid. He dominated. Trusted. I'm gonna carry, and if I don't carry, blame the jungler. Oh wait, shit. So yeah, that's kind of what happened in the first game. But in all the chaos that was the first game, they still fought super hard, and there were some team fights that were super close. Even seeing how far behind they were still managing to going like 4 for 5, 4 for 4. And for me, I was like, you know what? I think this series is actually won. It's going to be an absolute brawl. It's like that gif of these two boxers like holding each other and just punching each other's face constantly. That's what it felt like. And Fnatic was just a team that punched a bit harder into them. But it definitely felt like, even though the best of 3 wasn't the cleanest, that there was already some form of improvement since the G2 series. Not clean, but it's like we're just a bit better than the other teams, so that's enough to sort of lock in the series. And that's a bit what it felt like against Vitality specifically, is that we came into the Rift and we're like, you want to fight? We love to fight. We were born fighters. It's in Fnatic's culture. It's in Fnatic's blood, and we will take you on every single fight. And game 3 was pretty much it. It's like, see someone, fight someone. And Oscar, especially on his Vi, who is quite ahead, and Vi can just sustain so much the moment she has Sundered Sky. He's very happy to bait for his team, trade, ult, have his team join him, have enough resistance with the item, and just let his team take over. And that was it. It just came down to the fourth game, where early game was good, they fumbled, then it became very hard because again, Razork's just over eager, doing those Hail Mary plays where he's like, I need to, it's focus on the Xayah, get the Xayah the moment you see her, and the team is like half a map away, like, why the hell are you going in? Like, do you forget that they have other teammates that are bodyguarding the Xayah, on top of the Xayah having her ultimate so she can peel for herself? And it's like, oh shit, I've gone too far. Guys, try not to lose the game while I'm on grey screen mode. And that was a bit frustrating, to be honest. And I think we were very lucky to have a bot lane that decided to go full Korean mode, especially on the game with Noah's Xayah, the second game, and even the last game, where I feel like not a lot of people realized, but Noah getting a sort of different path into that bot jungle where instead of funneling into the Renekton, goes the other side and actually sort of stops the Xayah after her ultimate, starts, attacking her. Razork, who's finally a bit smarter, decides to ult the Xayah, so decides to hold his ultimate, and after Xayah's ulted, locks her down. Xayah can take anymore, and Xayah being very much the best member here of Vitality in this game in particular, and it's easily folded. Vito blundered a little bit on his Akali in that final game, where usually you expect VTO to take over the game on his Akali. That's his pocket pick. That's where he makes the money. That's where he brings his team over the line. And it just didn't happen. He just didn't have it this time around. So unlucky. VTO again, who crashes at the hurdle of winning a best of 5, and again prevented by Fnatic. I think that there's if his villain arc didn't exist already, it's definitely being built, and Fnatic is one of the reasons for it. We're gonna see him, like, he already has long hair, but he's gonna have like one eye covered, and he's gonna start laughing maniacally every time he sees Fnatic. He's like, "I'll get you, Fnatic," and with his cat on his lap, and just going absolutely mental because this guy just can't I don't know if there's a mental block or something, but he just can't get through that best of 5, man. He just can't. It's the hurdle too far from him, and across all the teams he's been in, the issue's never been solved. And in my opinion, I thought that was probably one of the best team where he had his chance, because Douglas is looking pretty good, even though he makes those mistakes, especially when he's ahead. A bit like Razork, like the old Razork. He's got an insane bot lane and top lane, probably one of the best top laners currently. And it's like, what else, man? Yeah, you have probably one of the best coaches and coaching staffs as well with Mac. Maybe it'll be something on the long run. Mac is someone who definitely builds his roster, who builds his team. So maybe that's something we'll see a bit later for him, but it's rough. It's definitely rough for him. What it isn't rough for is Fnatic, who's showcasing some improvement. We've heard that from Irrelevant that Fnatic is playing super well in scrims. Hopefully that's translated on the stage, but it's great to hear, because prior to that, Humanoid was saying that scrim level wasn't the best, that they've improved a little bit, but still wasn't great. And if they're on the sort of upward trend, personally I'm very excited to see what they're showcasing in the final games. Obviously, first hurdle is against BDS, who's definitely been up to the challenge so far. Second time that they end up in that semis spot to secure at least third. So we'll see. Definitely two teams who want to prove themselves and going to be button heads. And we're definitely going to have a banger best of 5, especially I think for BDS after the frustration of not being able to do much against the lane swapping meta from G2. With that said, I'd like to highlight one little guy called Jun, who I think has been absolutely amazing both series. There's been a lot of talk about Oscar on the series against Vitality, and he definitely played really well. Amazing Rek'Sai and Zac gameplay. I think he's found that champion on which he feels comfortable on, and where he is impactful on the map in the team fights. But Jun has definitely been that silent player who's played amazingly so far, and we're talking about someone who's having to adapt to a different region, different teammates, growing pains from the previous seasons, and readapting himself into sort of a completely new environment. and he's done this, I think, in a very smooth, seemingly way, where he's find his footing. He's playing super aggressive with Noah, so I feel they've already found their style here. But he's got those picks which are really making the difference. And for a long time, people said, "Oh no, June's a good player, but he's not a very flashy player." And I've always asked myself, like, do you really need a flashy support, or do you just want a support who's got good roam timings, who's placing the wards, who's getting that information, who's who knows how to place for his lane, but also knows how to play on the map, and bring um, bring that synergy with the jungler to cover some important parts of the map to help the other lanes to know when they can push, when they can tempo, and so on and so forth. And I think June has really played well with Razork's thinking on these elements. And in the end, what we've had on top of that is beyond the usual picks that we see from everyone, the Rels, the Nautilus, the Nami for the Lucian Nami combo. What's been really interesting is that he's got an amazing Alistar, he's got an amazing Blitzcrank, and he's really making plays that are changing the game for Fnatic. We've seen his Alistar in the regular season. He's pulled it off again against Team Heretics, and it was definitely the MVP of that game, where he he just manages his combo super well. He manages the dives perfectly to the point where he doesn't just blow out his whole combo of dash knock up. He knows when to position the knock up, and then have the headbutt ready because he's expecting Rakan to go in to counter the dive. Amazing. Then he plays the Blitzcrank. He sees his fool being in the wrong position, grabs him, outplays the dive against Vitality to perfection, where he flashes just at the right moment, grabs Karzi to prevent him from dealing any damage while Volibear is tanking. Volibear's over tanking, and by doing that, not only gets the first blood, which that's just a small detail, but prevents Noah from losing too much CS and go back into lane. Like, the impact that this player has, absolutely amazing, and especially when it looked like he's wearing the mask here in the Vitality game, that he was playing sick, and the sickness has been plaguing the team for the longest time, and it has affected the performances. And this guy played just as well, if not maybe even a bit better. And we're hearing from Irrelevant that June is an insane player as well. Like, this guy is ticking all the boxes so far. Oh, Loki's joined us as well, and I should replace Medic. Well, I think the consensus is in general says that I'm the new Medic. We'll see. I definitely don't have a doctorate or a diploma in medicine, so but I definitely have a master's in being a very mad person, especially when Fnatic plays. Sorry, so I don't know if that will work out. I don't know if I'll be able to keep it PG, especially during LEC games and watching certain teams playing. So maybe is it time for me to drop my resume to Riot? We will see. Maybe, you know what? It's I will have to take over with Dutch. Dutch and myself will be the new duo, and we'll take over the LEC. That's what needs to happen. But anyhow, to come back to June, there were a lot of questions around June as to, is he the right replacement? Why didn't Fnatic keep Trimby? They're making a big mistake. They're bringing a Korean just to bring a Korean. definitely feels now, even though it's still the middle of the season, that the June pick was very well thought through, especially from what's been said from Nightshare and other people from the Fnatic staff, the Fnatic team, that the pool of support players and their caliber isn't really that high any year, and if you're aiming really to go as far as possible, you need to be ambitious in your selection of players, and Jin has really fit that properly. He's vibing with the players. He's working really hard. He's showing some improvement. He's improving on his English as well. I think that you can only be very satisfied of this player, and if he keeps improving again into summer, I think we'll definitely be looking at the best support in Europe. So for anyone watching this, people having maybe doubts or still sort of questioning, he doesn't always have the perfect plays. He can have some blunders sometimes on the Nautilus where he hooks the wall or something like this, or doesn't necessarily ult the right enemy champion. But I think overall, with what is showcased through his gameplay, through the champions, and some of the specifics that he does with his execution, I think we can really be happy with what is showcased so far. And again, if what is proven that Fnatic is doing well in scrims, if he showcases that level of greatness into the next games, it's free real estate, I think. So I definitely want to congratulate him for his improvement so far, and I'm looking forward to what he's gonna show us going into the finals. I'm seeing some banger picks again going forward, so let's have it. Let's have an amazing final series. Let's see what Jin can do. Let's see him be the difference maker and show that he was the right guy for the job. That's all I'll say. I don't know what you guys think. Leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube, whatever channel. Very, very curious about what you think about June and his progress. Are you satisfied, expecting more? And what do you think about him in general? But with that said, let's move on to a very quick predictions, as there are only 2 best of 5s left. I've managed to close the gap a little bit in points, but you guys are still leading by 4, and we only have 1 score, which is different. I think that it's going to be a full gauntlet, 5 games, 3-2, 3-2. Might be a bit exhausting. Maybe it's a bit more manageable to do 2 best of 5s than the 3, which was the previous format. But as the proper Fnatic fans that we are, we're full on hopium, copium. We're going the whole way. So let's do it. Let's have this series. Let's have this trophy. Let's go to MSI. I think first going to MSI will be great. The championship on top will be the cherry. But I think going to MSI is great. Adding some international experience to the roster will do them the best of good and will challenge him at the highest level. So, yeah, definitely think that BDS can be taken. We're seeing better form, Oscar, and a great bot lane. I think if Humanoid Razork just stabilize a little bit and don't overdo it, we should be looking good. But in good Fnatic fashion, probably gonna be like a loss in the first game, and then much more stabilized draft and gameplay afterwards. We'll see if we're looking at some stupid lane swapping again, but we'll see. Some exciting games ahead, and a better form Fnatic. At least that's what we're looking at the end of the day. Guys, this is it. Final days for the spring split. Enjoy the games. Make sure you have your defibrillator and a cardiovascular specialist next to you because it's going to be heart attacks galore. In the meantime, make sure you follow all those channels if you want to be updated on everything that's going on. Live commentary of the games. Catch the VODs either on YouTube or Spotify. They get uploaded right after the show is broadcasted. So I'll see you there. You take care. And as usual, as it's tradition, always Fnatic. Bye bye, guys. Enjoy the finals.